Most of us have to rely on grandchildren.
I do that too.
Hello.
I'll tell you when I stop, they say it. The older we get the
One on here, and this is the separate one. Yeah, and what's because this is all one. Yeah, another one is
Smile, Fred, you're on candid camera.
You're never sure whether anyone's
Hello, how are you?
good, thanks.
Did you drive?
Yes, I
You do the driving coming up?
I am the driver.
And this is the money mixing it.
Has it changed?
Just put more on the flat.
It's a very
It's a good thing I didn't need to want to buy anything in the auction because I was completely unaware of what next.
All you need to do is There's a recent acquisition.
All this stuff, we're usually a mission.
Good morning all. Welcome to our ANS conference here in Coffs Harbour.
There is a microphone if you think you need one.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's my pleasure to invite our patron, John Pern, to come up and open our conference for us. Thank you.
Well, Jerry Doyle, our conference convener, very much Rod Sell, our secretary, very much George Snelgrove, our editor, who's going to edit all these wonderful papers from our presentations over these next 2 days. Life members of our association, our gold and silver medalists of our association, members all, and our partners who are here with us today. What a delight it is to be here again at this 17th biennial conference. There is a feeling of true family in our association, and that's come about by the contributions and the warmth and the collegiate help that's been given by every member of our association, such as our traditions, to help each other in collecting and researching and presenting. And it comes together at this biennial conference, and what a delight it is to be here today. And we thank very much Jerry and Rod and George and the other colleagues who've made this possible again on this occasion to come together. It's a great privilege to be your patron, of course. And from the desk of the patron, I would just like to say that in these first decades of the 21st century, we're all beset by change. And in the scientific and cultural world and research world of numismatics, change, of course, has been observed continuously for the last 2,000 years. All of us here are aware that change brings with it both challenges and opportunities. But in a changing society, some things are lost. And this imposes a responsibility, I believe, almost a moral impost, and certainly an ethical one, to document what's gone before, that the future generations who will follow on will know of their past. Perhaps two of the greatest questions in life are, where have we come from and where are we going? Now, the first of these questions does impose a responsibility on those, like all of us in the numismatic world, whose self-imposed duty is to document the richness of the past. That's what this conference is all about. A cashless society, which is coming, is a threat to coin collectors, especially to banknote collectors as well. And the emergence of the blockchain currencies, of which Bitcoin is the flagship, is a threat to every fiat currency in the world, and thus in turn to those who enjoy the heritage of pictorial detail on coins and on medals and banknotes and badges. The ubiquity of electronic mail has certainly changed really the world of our sister avocation, that of philately. But several things never change. One is the delight and the passion in collecting. The innate urge, in some of us, almost an obsession. I'm looking at several colleagues in the audience here, to explore and define the full spectrum of a chosen theme. Really such that we can define the complete range of our chosen field, and thus define really the completeness of some micro world with all its variety and its richness. A second immutable truth is that the human species, indeed the entire animal world, is driven to adorn itself with distinguishing marks, whether these be face painting and body adornment of our forebears who were members of hunter-gatherer societies, or in modern days the floral decoration of a bridegroom or the bride's father at a wedding, or the badges we wear on our lapels or our uniforms to proclaim our membership of a particular association or society in which we're very proud. Since Roman times, medals have been bestowed and proudly worn or displayed as third-party tributes of esteem or of victory, or declarations of primacy in sport. In the instance of coins, it's very difficult to imagine a society in which the intermediate symbol of worth or of value, accepted by both buyer and of seller, will ever totally disappear. Barter, as the direct equivalence in value between two unrelated goods or services, has always existed. But its inconvenience and its often impracticability was the reason for the invention of coinage around, as we all know, 620 BC in Lydia, in modern-day Turkey. Credit has always existed, but again, it's difficult to imagine a society without a fiat currency, where everyone in the future might otherwise be forced either to barter with direct exchange, or to trust a total stranger with credit. The prepaid delivery of goods will always be required, and thus some form of receipt, such as the postage stamp, with its defining name, the Greek atelos, meaning taxes, will similarly also be needed. The world of the philatelist is changing and will continue to change, but collectors will always have an interest in the collection of those receipts, whatever form they might take in the future. But our numismatic world is perhaps more secure in that badges and medals and medallions will always be worn, and some form of fiat currency will continue, I would opine, always to exist. And in numismatic conferences such as our own in the centuries ahead, there will undoubtedly be much change, and there will be new and perhaps at present unimaginable themes and objects which will intrigue and delight delegates like us, as such objects do today. And new forms of numismatic art will emerge, but different items will be there to collect for those who follow on to classify them and to research them and to present them at these unknown conferences of the future. The future is very exciting. I'm going to be convening the Captain Cook 250th anniversary celebrations in Northern Australia in 2 years' time, in 2020, and that will be a wonderful theme for our next biennial conference. Here will be the Cook theme. And of course, we have Phil Benjamin with us here today, and Phil, as the acknowledged Cook numismatist here, will be speaking at that conference as well. And there's nothing worse than having a patron that just potters around and enjoys what everybody else has done. So I've in fact got a little gift to give speakers at this conference. I've, as you know, designed over the last 35 years now about 32 medals. And there was a medal I did for the World Medical Librarians Conference. It's a beautiful gold medal. And I have one here, and I'd like to present the first one to our conference convener, Jerry. Jerry, this is just a little tribute for your collection. It's a 24 karat gold medal. It's unfortunately not solid, but it's, it won't tarnish. And on the back, I've used the metaphor of the World Wide Web, meaning the theme of conferences and outreach such as we're enjoying at this conference, and I've done a spider's web, and in the spider's web the themes are the digital zeros and ones, and I spell out the words there that enjoin all those who attend conferences, like collaboration, research, impost, teaching and sharing. On the other side, it's the medical symbols. Never trust a medical patron there, but it's a very beautiful medal, and I have one for all the speakers, each of the speakers, as a patron's gift at this conference today. But Jerry, as our convener, thank you for bringing this together. Well, just to conclude, change, be it for improvement, if it be for improvement, is a virtue, but mindless change, simply for change's sake, is of course ludicrous. Constant trivial change without advance consumes resources, most importantly those of energy and of time, and mindless change for no advance is entered into the debit account of lost opportunities and as opportunity costs. Our Australian Numismatic Society promotes creativity and innovation for improvement, and in that sense our change and constant change is very much a virtue. Our future will balance those with fundamental acknowledgement that interpreting and recording the past, as we do in these papers at our conference and in our hobbies at home. This really enriches our lives, and we hope from our research and the papers presented here at this conference will enrich the lives of those, and in our published papers will enrich the lives and preserve the heritage for those who will follow on. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for those opening words, Patron John, and thank you very much for this beautiful medal. It'll be a pleasure to include it in my collection. I probably won't start collecting medical medals though. Just a few notes and some comments about the conference. You'll see the dinner tonight upstairs. I'll ask that we be there at about 6:30. Meals are going to be presented from 7 o'clock onwards, and hopefully they're not going to kick us out like they did last night for the auction. We're going to have morning teas, another down here, so we won't be going upstairs, so people like me with crooked knees to not to have to climb the stairs again. We also have, I want a few thanks. I'd like to thank Bernie. Bernie had the onerous task of dealing with the resort here to get menus, etc. And that's quite a challenge, I can say, for those that have done it before. Thank you, Bernie. A special thanks to Gordon's wife, Carol, who's not well. She's undergoing treatment at the moment, but she has done an excellent job in preparing and helping to prepare the certificates of attendance and also the name tags. Also, Stephen, who's going to be the IT guru.
I didn't find this out until like 8 o'clock this morning.
We also have displays, and thank you all those who have brought displays along. If you haven't got voting slips, please come see me and get one, only one. And there is a box up there to put your votes in, and we'll record those tonight. The Sunday, as you know, traditionally we have gone down to the RSL for dinner. Do that this time. So if you can please let me know who's going to attend, so we can try and arrange for the courtesy buses from the RSL to take us there and get us back. That'll be Sunday after the conference. You've all got a copy. Everyone's got a copy of the program. Hopefully we will try and stick to the times, but The other thing I would like to say, could we have the next slide, please? I'd just like to say, enjoy the conference. It's great to meet up with old friends, and once again, happy and enjoyable collecting. With that, I'll now hand back to our session chairman, John.
Well, welcome colleagues to this first scientific and literary session of our conference, and it's a special delight to introduce the first speaker, the advance guard, as they say in the French Foreign Legion, the fer de lance of our conference, Colin Thomas. Colin is known to, I think, almost all of us as a very warm personal friend, somebody held in great esteem as a collector. Colin has been a society member of our society now for 36 years. He's an associate fellow of the ANS. He's a thrice Leo McCartney Patrons Prize winner, and many other things besides. Colin is a retired mechanical engineer. As many of us know, he was born in England. He's born in Southend-on-Sea. He worked on Concorde, that wonderful iconic plane, and very importantly, from those of us with a military background, very much on the Harrier jump jets as well as a mechanical engineer. Colin also has had a major professional life working with Incitec, working on heat exchange devices, so important, of course, in the future in climate change and the preservation of energy. We know Colin as a very long-standing and dear friend in the Australian Numismatic Society, but Colin also has an esteemed reputation in the United Kingdom as a 51-year member of the Havering Numismatic Society, of which he's an honorary life member. And in talking with Colin, he'll be embarrassed if I mention this, but he has just been awarded the Scribe of the Half-Century Award of the Havering Numismatic Society in the United Kingdom. Can I invite Colin to present his paper with the enigmatic title, Essex.
Thank you, John. Thank you, John, for that wonderful introduction. On the table there I have my display, and I've also supplied a torch so you can look at it. The light is not too great, but anyway, I've accumulated a collection of tokens of Essex. A great friend of mine, who is the president of the Havering Numismatic Society, this is a gentleman here, he wrote this beautiful book, and it took him 20 years to do it. And he's made a beautiful job. I'll read slightly part of this screed here, and then deal with the tokens here. Essex. I've passed around some leaflets of the actual county. The county of Essex is 3,670 square kilometres, roughly. It's divided into 14 sections or districts, and at a census in 2016 it's about 1.82 million people in that area, so probably the same size as one of the big ranches in Queensland. So. The county of Essex in England has a long history of settlement. The wording of the county itself, Essex, is recorded to have been a modified version of East Essex, East Saxons. In AD 527, the county boundaries were stipulated as being north of the River Thames, with much of the land mass washed by sea on the eastern coastline from Harwich in the northeast, southwest to Lee-on-Sea at the mouth of the river. The county of Kent lies south of the River Thames. The county comprises some 275 towns, villages and hamlets, with the city of Chelmsford being the county seat. More famously, Colchester, once the capital of Roman Britain, is today a thriving metropolis with commerce, trade and tourism abounding. It was once the stronghold of the Trinovantes tribe, and the coat of arms of the county is very distinctive and appears on all manner of items relating to the county. And here we go. It is described as, quote, official blazoned gules, 3 seaxes, fess wires in pale argent pommels and hilts, or points to the sinister and cutting edges of upwards. The arms were first officially granted on the 15th of July 1932, which is quite late. Arms attributed to the ancient kingdom of the East Saxons. The swords are distinctive notches, seaxes, cutlasses, and thus an allusion to the word Saxon. Right, can I have the next one, please? In his book that is written here, that I have here, you can have a look at later, there's over 3,000 items that is listed here. They range from tokens, medals, and other associated items. And I was lucky enough to acquire some material from Pam Williams. Her husband Bob passed away, and I was lucky enough to purchase some of his estate, and that's where this part of this collection came from. Next one. I also love the photographs that go with it. This is Barkingside High Street, which is near where I used to live. Barkingside is probably more known for Dr. Bernardo's homes. I don't know if you know Dr. Bernardo's homes. John, you probably do. Well, Dr. Bernardo's home was at the end of this street, as I remember. It's still there now. So this is the street in Barkingside. It's a little bit different now. Of course, this was 1905. Next one. The area was populated because of the nearby market gardening areas. In fact, one of the main industries of the area was the produce of fruit and vegetables, known also for his Dr. Bernardo's children's home. Next one, please. This is the home as is, or was, and children out the front there, and an advertisement of Dr. Bernardo's homes, Christmas time. It did a lot of good work in those days. Again, please. Tokens of Barkingside. George Burr was a market gardener for 1886. John Fountain, a jobber, which is a trader in actual fact, operated in 1882. These are some of the tokens. These are the better struck ones. There are some very crude ones. Can I have the next one? James Ingram farmed from 1882 to 1922. Most of these are to do with farming and produce, mainly vegetables and fruit. Come back forward. Yes, please. Next one. David Bixby is quite an interesting guy. He must have been quite wealthy because he used to serve his, take his produce to the markets in London, and he has quite a number of tokens. I've only got a few of them there, and I've got a few over there as well. But he chose different shapes, and they were very distinctive. Now these tokens, they were given to his farm workers for pay. They would collect, say, a sack of potatoes, and they would be given a 6pence token. They couldn't spend that money. They had to redeem it for currency at the end of the day. So those tokens always remained the property of the farmer. It was a very good advertising situation. Next one, please. This is another David Bixby one. It's unusual because it's got 1 shilling on the reverse, but most of David Bixby's material has the same wording on both sides. As I said, he's a very successful businessman. He operated his market gardening empire by selling produce in the Spitalfields and Covent Garden markets in London and other local Essex markets. It is imagined that David Bixby had other outlets and farm areas One token for the value of 1 shilling, which I do not have, was discovered buried in the earth on a farm in Bedfordshire, which is quite a way away from Essex in those days. So he did have quite a big empire. Next one. Braintree. This is quite, to my mind, an interesting one. It's a bracteat for H.T. Arnold and Son Butchers. It's plated iron, a small item. It's on display there now, a diameter of 25.5, and this, there is a 2 and 6 on this one, but there is a 6pence one as well. Now, it's quite interesting. Can I have the next one? That's H.T. Arnold, his shop, his butcher shop. And the funny thing was, or strange thing about this was, on those previous one, it's got Braintree, and his shop is there. And in actual fact, there's some anomaly here because the boundary went right down the centre of the street, and his shop was actually on the Bocking side, not the Braintree side, even though his token said they are Braintree. So there's one anomaly there. I found that quite interesting. And again, I love these photographs that go with it. The next one, please. I found this quite interesting. This is a replica one, but it's the 350th anniversary of the siege of Colchester in the Civil War. David, you might be interested in that one. Judith? Yeah. Apparently there's a piece of 10 shillings in the British Museum. I've never seen it. I don't know if it's on display. But it's quite a nice piece. It was struck in silver. And you can see the CROB, and I can translate that later. 1648 was when the siege happened. And of course it was the royalists, after 74 days, had to give in to the parliamentarians. Next one. Dagenham. Dagenham is near Romford and Hornchurch. Hornchurch is where I used to live. John Smith operated his business at Mashford Farm for a period of about 4 years, quite a small time, little time. Then from Marsh Green in the early 20th century, there is no reference to him after 1906. A lot of these tokens have very little references to them. The next one, please. 8 tokens attributed to J. Smith. They range from 6pence, 1, 2 and 5 shillings. The maker's name on the tokens in many cases throughout Essex is R. Neal of Percival Street. This guy must have made quite a lot of money doing these tokens for the farmers, because a lot of the tokens are by R. Neal. And it is thought that he bought the business from Thornton in about 1909. So he made a bit of a killing. And you probably know that Dagenham's known for the Ford Motor Company and the Briggs motor bodies used to be made in Dagenham. Next one. Crown Street, unknown. This is Dagenham. I don't know the date of this, I wasn't able to find out, but it just shows you there's not much traffic on the roads in those days, and this is a high street. Next one, please. Ilford. This is now quite a thriving metropolis now. Not a great deal is known about T. Malpas, although he is listed as a farmer. He did have outlets for his produce in Covent Garden, and he operated at the beginning of the 20th century. I don't know if the next one, can I have the next one, please, Stephen?
Yep.
Okay. Can I go back again? Okay. I mentioned Ilford because Ilford was probably better known for the Plessy Company, and the Plessy Company used to have electronics, produce electronics, and it was on top of the roof of the Plessy Company that there was a little office that was dedicated to John Logie Baird, who did his experimentation with TV, and it was in Ilford. John, next one please. Raynham, which is near Dagenham. Once again, very little is known. Again, it's a farmer's token for 1 shilling in this case. It's a short distance from Romford and Hornchurch, very close to Dagenham, as I previously said. Next one. Hornchurch. Now I love this one because of workplace health and safety. That would not be allowed today, of course. There's two men up the pole there fixing electrics or whatever they're fixing. I just love this picture from about 1910. And you see the ladies with their long skirts and the little carts, and again, not much traffic. There's quite a few photographs on there that I've blown up that you can have a look at, and I say these things to go with the tokens really make it come alive as a period that's gone forever. Thank you. There you go. James Fowler. This is rather strange because there seems to be an error, Fowles. His name is Fowler, but they think this was a wrist strike. He operated from 1899 to 1917, quite a short period of time, and this is from Romford, the area of Romford. And you may just be able to see in this one, see Neil again, Neil struck it again. It's a very crude type of thing, but I've had correspondence with our member Craig Guppy down in Victoria, because he's been doing some research on the name of Gubby, and this man used to work at Gubbing Farm, so it all sort of tied in. Next one. And this is North Street, Romford, 1910 roughly, and as far as I know, these buildings were still there. And there used to be a driveway through there to the back where the pub is there, and the coaches used to go into the coach yard at the back of there. Again. Southend-on-Sea is where I come from, or just outside. This is the peace medal that was struck. Not a lot known about it, but it's got the logo of Southend on there. Okay. How am I going for time?
There's plenty of time.
Okay.
Way ahead.
Coat of arms depicted on the peace medal. The motto is scroll per mar per ecclesiam, translated through the sea, through the church. And you can see the logo there, which was on the medal previously shown. Yes. Southend-on-Sea is probably known for his pier, the longest pier in the world. One of our English friends probably knows that. And for many years they had a replica of the Golden Hind in the front of the pier before you got onto the pier. Two items. One is the Cursal, which was built in 1901, and it was not derelict, but almost derelict for quite a period of time, and they refurbished it in 1998 and released that medal for the Cursal. It was a play area, similar to what we have the Eka here. And the Southend Pier, as I said, used to have trains going along it, and that is presumed to be a train tab. It's about yay big, quite big and hefty. It's quite an interesting place, Southend and the pier, because it's had quite a few things happen to it. It's caught fire a few times. It's had a boat run into it, and it was closed, and all sorts of things. I love this again, Upminster. This is near Raynham, Dagenham, Hornchurch. This is Station Road 1928 with the carts. I love the children in the foreground here, standing, posing for a photograph. And you can just imagine that happening today. That wouldn't happen, would it? You just get your camera out, your mobile phone out and go click, click, click. But not in those days, of course. This was quite an innovation to have photographs of those times. Thank you. Upminster. Walter Jocelyn, dated 1889. We don't know why, never been able to find out why the date is on there. I've no idea, but it's a 1 shilling token. He was a farmer, as you can read, operating in Averley and Worcester and Upminster, and my latest acquisitions have been some tokens from Worcester, and that's a totally different story again. So, next one. This is Great Wakering, which is further towards the mouth of the River Thames, off Southend, further out, and a little tiny place. This is about 1950, as you can see. Tokens represent the largest number of items in the author's in my collection. I was able to purchase several tokens which were offered for sale by the collector Stuart Adams. That's the gentleman that wrote this book. And you can read. Gilbert Kemsley is said to have farmed in Townfield Farm and Tottenham Hall with him in the period of operations 1914 to 1933. Relatively small areas of time, 20 years, maybe 18, 20 years, and some as low as 4 years. Next one, please. And there's some of the tokens of Gilbert Kemsley. And you can see they're all different shapes, different denominations, up to 10 shillings. It is thought that to save money, he used token blanks of other farmers so that he could just use them and put his own logo on the tokens. And they've all got Kemsley and Kemsley. Now, whether that's Kemsley and Kemsley, father and son, or brother and two brothers, it's not known. But all his tokens are very similar, ranging from 1 penny to 10 shillings. And that's just a resume of what you've been seeing. The next one, please. I'd like to acknowledge the help by my daughter Lee, who some of you met last night, for her professional assistance and for her numerous suggestions and alterations. Dad, you can't do that. Dad, you can't do this. In the production and implementation and this presentation. Some of you met Lee. Lee will be with her husband Alan at dinner tonight, so we're pleased for her to be here. And she's a librarian at St James School in Brisbane, so she has the know-how. Thank you all for your attendance.
Well, Colin's paper's open for questions and discussion or points.
Oh, I hope they're not tricky ones.
Colleagues, we have several new colleagues here with us for the first time at our conference today. Although it's a little bit artificial, would you just, at least today anyway, introduce yourself just to the room before you make a point?
Yeah.
John? Ian?
Ian Seisland, Sydney. Been in ANS for about 6 months, I suppose, and enjoying every moment. Thank you.
John.
Okay, John Veltmeyer, Sydney ANS, actually. Been a member for many, many years. I don't know how many. I'm also a live member.
You're not a new member there?
I'm not a member. Anyway, Colin, what, can you just go through it again as to why they had those tokens?
Yes, it was a very clever ploy. It's like advertising for the farmer or for the jobber. They advertised their name and said they didn't pay their workers in actual cash, they paid them in tokens. Now, the guy who's the actual labourer wouldn't want to lose that token because at the end of the day he'd transfer it into currency, and the token went back to the boss. So he retained all those tokens, but it was advertising as well. So he went all the way around.
They didn't have a family, a company store or something that they had to buy things from?
No, there was much
So,
more
so how often could they actually cash the tokens in to get the
They
currency?
cashed them into the farmer himself. Like say they had 10 shillings, which was a lot of money, they would give that 10 shilling token to the farmer and he would pay them 10 shillings in cash. He would retain the 10 shilling token and the next day he'd hand the token out to somebody else.
Okay,
Yes,
so
Phil.
the token actually was like he would be paying his workers daily,
Yes,
and then they could cash them at the end of the
yes,
week. Okay.
yeah, mainly daily. Yes.
So it's in effect a
for
tally, is it?
and those that worked earned well, and those that didn't work hard
didn't do it well.
That's right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was a way of doing it. It was very clever ploy. And as I say, Kemsley and David Bixby were quite wealthy men because of this. Yeah, so. Yes.
Sorry, Darren Burgess, not a member of the AMS, sorry.
We'll fix that.
I'll get the code.
All right, Ross, all right.
Question on?
President of the Numismatic Association of Victoria, if you don't know who I am. But I find, thank you very much, and I'm doing this very similar project with my home county, Shropshire.
Oh, it's not as good as Essex.
No, it's much more beautiful. But what I find when I'm researching from a distance is that it can be very difficult for especially token issuers, because we've got this wonderful project here called Trove from the National Library, which is invaluable in researching tokens and merchants and that kind of thing. How are you doing that from the distance?
Well, I have contact with Stuart. I correspond with Stuart and another member of there, Brian, and with the HNS in the UK. We send each other emails and he sends me information. I've actually sent him information on Way, W-A-Y, which was a company in Sydney that had a clothing manufacturer. He didn't know anything about them, but he's come across these two tokens, one for UK and one for Australia, and it's the name of Way. And so I was able to send in information from Australia about Way, which is going to be published soon or something, between the two of us. But this gentleman, he worked very hard, and this is the second book actually. He was going to make it volume 1 and 2, and he said, oh, to heck with it, I'll make the second one the full lot. So it took him 20 years, but it's a lovely book.
Yeah, George Snelgrove.
Not a tricky one, George.
Yeah, this is a tricky one. Seems a bit of a weakness in the advertising thing when the fellow's working and he gets a token tally as he goes along, and then he cashes in at night. The tokens didn't seem to get out among the population to advertise.
They didn't, but it was within the farming community.
Yeah.
It would have been well known, like this Owen Neal.
Yeah.
He would have made money from...
Colin, would you speak up really loudly for...
Sorry. Yeah, it's the tokens having R. Neal on, most of them have R. Neal, who was the manufacturer of the tokens. So it did get around the farming community.
It's good to see one was dug up somewhere. And
I'd just like to say one thing. I've got another book over there. It's nothing to do with what I've been speaking about, but it is the logbook of the Aisha. You probably know about my association with the Emden. Well, the Aisha was the schooner which Helmut von Muck escaped on from the Cocos Keeling Islands.
Colin, we don't know about the Emden.
You don't?
Please tell us.
Oh!
Do I hear groans?
Have I got time?
You need 2 hours.
I was involved with the Emden, the SMS Emden, and George knows and Bernie knows. For many years I did a lot of research on it, and there's tokens from the Emden and all sorts of things. I actually had the first officer of the son of the first officer come to Australia, stayed with me on 2 occasions. He came to one of our dinners one evening. He's now unfortunately deceased, but I gained a lot of information about the conflict of the Sydney HMS Sydney, the first one, and the Emden. And Helmut von Mucker was the first officer, and he took a band of people to Cocos Keeling Islands to destroy all the radio connections, which he did do, but he was left on there because the Sydney come along and they started to engage the Emden in warfare, so he was stuck on the island. So he commandeered the schooner, the Aisha, and he escaped with 53 men, and he did all, took him 6 months, but he got back to Germany, and he was awarded the Iron Cross. Well, that book there is, as far as I know, the only one. It's the logbook. It's in German, of course, and there's a lot of photographs that he took on the way, over 100 photographs in Arabia, where he fought battles in the desert and all sorts of things. It's a whole 2 stories in one, in actual fact. So that's it. I could go on for ages, but...
Colin, Southend-on-Sea is the wonderful name of a wonderful regimental march. One of the regiments of the Light Division has Southend-on-Sea as the name of their regimental. It's a tune. And I did a dig in a Roman salt works in the Essex estuary once, actually, which is it's rich in Roman ruin as well as isn't it, as the area.
Roman ruins are very common. And so is Roman coinage.
Yes.
They dig it up so well. Dug up a Roman coin.
Now there's a common saying, not in a derogatory way, but they say she's an Essex girl. What does that mean?
Well, at the moment, not very much, so I understand. One of our friends who came from Southend, she works near where we are now, and she said, you wouldn't like Southend now, it's not a very nice place at all. But when I was a kid, it was fine.
Colin, on behalf of us all, please accept this token just as our esteem and for all that wonderful research. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, our next speaker is well known to everybody here, held in great affection by members of our association. The speaker is, of course, George Snelgrove, who's been a society member for 51 years. George is a full fellow of the Australian Numismatic Society. He is a gold medalist. He has a wide-ranging interest in many subjects, and over these biennial conferences, George has enriched our knowledge on many different subjects. He's well known, particularly for his interest and work in the Holy Dollar research and promotion, the promotion of knowledge about that. But today, George is going to tell us about one of the medals which is struck for Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee. George is well known to us as a retired builder. George did his training as a boiler maker, I guess, as a rigger and artificer. He has special expertise, in furnace manufacture and in installation as well. But he's been a leader in our society in the world of numismatics now for this time exceeding 5 decades. George, it's always wonderful to have you with us and to present the paper. We're looking forward very much to hearing about the Queensland Police Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee Medal of 1897.
Yeah, thank you, John. I'll just pick you up on one point. I didn't do my trade as a boiler maker. I just picked this up along the way, you might say. Learn as you go. Jack of all trade, master of none. Okay. The Queensland Police Force Diamond Jubilee Medal, 1897. I've got 3 of these scarce Queensland Police Force Jubilee medals of 1897 and are in my collection. The medals have always been quite scarce. It has been over the last 40 years that they have been obtained. Information is also hard to come by, but a lot more detail has become available in recent times via the internet. They were produced in silver and bronze, and most collectors of the past have made educated guesses as to who received a silver or a bronze. These Queensland Police Force 1897 Jubilee medals were designed by R. Kapner. He's well known by Queenslanders and probably everybody else in Australia. And edge engraved by Dilger Brothers of Brisbane. The medals were minted by the Queensland Colonial Government or the police and were awarded in silver and bronze types. The silver medals were awarded to commissioned officers, regardless of length of service. That's one point. And to constables and NCOs, non-commissioned officers, who were serving prior to 1887. The bronze medals were awarded to constables and NCOs who were sworn in after 1887. All officers had to be serving on the day of the Jubilee. Both medals were suspended by a red ribbon with a top bar and attached brooch with the words Police Force displayed. The medal had approval from Queen Victoria, but only for wear within the colony. There were 19 silver medals awarded to commissioned officers, 349 silver to NCOs and constables with 10 years or more service, and 421 bronze medals awarded to the rest of the force. The 3 medals in the Snelgrove collection are 1 silver and 2 bronze. That's a silver. The silver is named to Sergeant R. Crooks. What a name for a police. Would that be for a robber or? Robert Crooks made an application for admission into the police force in Brisbane in January 23rd, 1884. At that time he had lived in Queensland for 15 months. He was single. He joined the police force on the 13th of March 1884. His registered number was 573. Several copies of documents from his service files indicates that he asked for permission for promotion and seems to have been stationed at several areas in the state. A document in his records indicates that he was promoted to sergeant from the 1st of April 1897 and was transferred from Windora to Blackwall in October 1897. This document was ink stamped, served in the police force Queensland, and within the stamp it stated in ink, freehand, died 6th of July 1899. Now, first of all, I'll get back to the business of who got a silver and who got a bronze, in case you didn't quite pick it up. We've virtually got 2 Jubilees here, and they'll be reverting back to the 1887 Jubilee time. So to get a silver one, didn't matter if you was an officer or other ranks. If you was in before 1887 and in 1897, you would automatically get a silver medal. So it didn't matter whether you was an officer or not. And if you was joined up after that, you could only get a bronze. Other interesting paperwork includes an inventory of the late Sergeant Crooks. Effects that are in the Blackwall police station. Among some 88 listed items was 1 Jubilee police medal. 2 letters concerning the medal, one dated 13th of February 1900 from the Blackwall station that states, the late Sergeant Crooks Jubilee medal is at the station. General Order 697 makes no provisions for the disposal in this case. Remember, he wasn't married. Would the inspector advise what to be done with it? A letter of reply from the Office of Commissioner of Police, 28th of February 1900, stated that the medal should be forwarded to this office, and on the 9th of March 1900 it was accepted, keep in safe. And on the 10th of March it was medal put in safe accordingly. Whereabouts of the medal from this point on is not known, but it now resides in the Snelgrove collection. No, I didn't picture it.
Found and safe.
Have the next medal. Okay. One of the bronze medals is named to Constable J. Woodhouse. Joseph Woodhouse was sworn in to the police force on 1st of May 1888 and retired on the 1st of June 1908. So you'll notice that he was in after 1887. He joined in 1888. His number was 248. He was stationed at several towns throughout his career, including 4 months at Roma Street, 4 years, 2 months at Ipswich, 6 years at Mackay, 8 years at North Bundaberg, and 7 months at Cairns. Woodhouse was married with 7 children. After 20 plus years in the force, he retired to the rank of acting sergeant. Okay, the next pic, please. Okay. The second of the bronze medals is unnamed. It's really not another variety except that it is unnamed. The reason is not known to this writer. Other unnamed specimens have been cited. When I say I've cited, it's actually I've actually seen the actual medals rather than any that's pictured in a book. The medals have been well designed, and the manufacture of the dies and the striking of the medal is quite commendable. But the manufacture of the suspension bar and the pin bar leave something to be desired. Can you bring the next one up, Stephen? Yes, here we go. And seems quite out of place on such a fine metal. The workmanship on these 2 pieces is crude and amateur to say the least. All specimens cited by this writer have all had the same crude suspensions. That's the ones I've actually seen and handled. They've all had this crude suspension on such a fine designed metal. Other suspensions have been cited, pictorially in sale catalogues, etc., and there may have been an attempt to produce better quality suspensions on metals presented to dignitaries, say, but no verification has been cited for this action. Metals have been cited with no suspensions and were probably broken and separated from the metal. Others with a completely foreign suspension may have been manufactured privately. Following here are some cited variations. The far left one, of course, is a typical type crude suspension bar. The metal on this side appears to have lost its original bar, but has been deliberately removed, or has been deliberately removed, and has been replaced with a metal ring. Next one, please, Sam. Okay. This metal here is a much more sophisticated type suspender. So whether somebody's had it and thought this is a good metal, I'll get a nice suspension bar, metal on it, a bar, or whether it was for dignitaries, I don't know, but it is quite a nice one. And even the bar at the top, they seem to have used an original one, but it's been modified a bit to what it was originally, like the next one. It's a very neat interpretation of the suspender bar and pin bar. Also, it is worth noting that the police force bar has been adapted from an original pin bar and is sporting a new, more modern strip of ribbon. The silver medal above centre has had another interpretation suspender bar, and the ribbon does not appear to be as an original. So you can see there that it's sort of similar to the original ones, but it's far more neater. And I know it's got a bit of white on that ribbon, but I don't think that would even be the original ribbon on it. The 2 name medals in, oh wait a minute, so another interpretation bar. The bronze medal above right here also may have another interpretation suspender bar, although it does have a similarity to the original design. The ribbon is also a replacement. No doubt there are other medals with varying suspender bars. The 2 named medals in the collection have the same style of ribbon. possibly you could go back for me a couple there, Stephen, go back again. That one and the next one, right. Oh, and the next one is that one and the next one, are they the named ones? The two named medals in the collection have the same type of ribbon, for example, horizontal weave, two named medals in the collection have the same style of ribbon, horizontal weave in the centre and a vertical design edging on it. See the edging has got a vertical edging. The unnamed specimen has a similar design ribbon, which has got, yeah, that's in there, no, this one. It's got a similar type of ribbon, and in the flesh, or when you see it up there, it has horizontal weave that way, and it does have the edging on it too. But the material is thinner and of a different manufacture. But I do think that all three appear to have original ribbons and are quite delicate with age. Can we go back up again now, Steve? Right to where I was before.
Down here?
There we go. That's a typical style of engraving that somebody brothers, whatever it was I said before, of Brisbane engraved them all. And all that I've seen have been that typical style of engraving with the name of the constable or whoever. Several points need to be addressed about these medals, as some write-ups conflict. The above data has been gleaned from Trove newspaper reports of the period of issue. Another document in the collection was written with information reported around 1899, and a quote is as follows. Queensland Police Force, Queensland Victoria Diamond Jubilee Medal, 1897. This is quote. The medal was presented by the Government of Queensland to members of the Queensland Police Force on the occasion of the Diamond Jubilee commemoration 1897 of the 60th year of the reign of Her Gracious Majesty Queen Victoria, and which was worn within the colony by permission of Her Majesty. The medal was designed and manufactured by Mr. R. Kapner. 378 medals were made in silver and about 450 in bronze. The obverse of the medal featured a representation of Queen Victoria with the words Victoria Regina, Diamond 1897 Jubilee. Just come back down again for a bit.
Yep, back there.
Oh, right, just leave it there. The reverse featured a crown and a cross with the inscription Queensland Police Force. The ribbon was red in colour and 1 inch in length. The name and rank of each recipient was engraved on the rim by Dillinger Brothers, 19 Wharf Street, Brisbane. The medal was worn whenever the police appeared in full dress uniform. It was worn on the left breast, the top of the ribbon in line with the second button on the tunic. With undressed uniform, the red ribbon only was worn. The ribbon was ½ an inch in length. I've never seen just the ribbon that was worn. The silver medal was presented to all members of the force of the rank of officer and to every person who was sworn in before 21st of June 1887 and still serving on the 21st of June 1897, as I explained before. The list was compiled from data contained in COP branch 1097. Additional information was taken from supplement to the Queensland Police Gazette on February 1899. So that was all stated in 1899. Well, I just read out. Now here we have Carlisle's work in the Australian Historical Medals, 1788 to 1988, and this is number Carlisle 1897-101, page 128. The points in question are: 1. Numbers of each metal minted conflict. The above information, gleaned from Google and Trove, states 368 silver, 421 bronze. Numbers in the quoted document that I just read, 378 silver, 450 bronze. Carlisle states, along the bottom here, 382 silver, 450 bronze. These numbers probably need more research. However, Carlisle has had access to much of Stokes's work invoices, and he may have taken his numbers from those documents. So what I'm saying is, at this stage, I feel that Carlisle's numbers may be closer to the money. A bit more somewhere. Bear with me for a moment, if you will. Kapner has been described as designed by, inverted commas, designed and manufactured by, inverted commas, dies cut by Kapner, struck by Stokes, ribbon and suspension by Kapner. Also relevant to this point is the medals were minted by the Queensland colonial government for the police. Dies were cut by Kapner, struck by Stokes. Points to consider here are: what role did Kapner actually play in the production of the medals? There seems little doubt that the design medal, it seems little doubt that he designed the medal. But did he actually cut the dies? He may well have produced plaster casts of the metal for Stokes to work off. It seems more likely to this writer that if Stokes struck the metals, they more than likely cut the dies. Carlisle's comment, ribbon and suspension by Kapner. Ribbon and suspension by Kapner is interesting, because if Kapner was talented enough to design a quality metal as this, and if by chance he was able to cut the dies, then he surely would not have designed and manufactured the suspender and pin bar of such crude and amateurish workmanship. The possible consideration may be that the cost of the metals may have been getting too expensive for the Queensland colonial government, and it had the suspensions etc. made and affixed to the metals by the local police blacksmith shop. On my display up there, I've got two pieces there. One's a police buckle, and another one is a cap badge for New South Wales prisons. And I believe they were both made in the prisons by the prisoners, those two pieces. I thought they were quite relevant to say the suspender bars may well have been made in the prison by the prisoners, because they're pretty crude. Most medals seen by this writer are still intact with ribbons that are in very poor condition, and many have been replaced with a modern ribbon, as with the specimen in Carlisle. This one specimen in Carlisle is a replacement ribbon, which is probably also missing the bar with police force on it, because he didn't show it as a picture in there. The suspension bar is that's right. The suspension bar that's on that particular piece, that's an original one there. So if you've got any easy questions for me, I'd like to try and answer them for you.
Well, thank you very much indeed, George. Questions, debate, discussion?
Well, first question is, George, how many of these are known today that you
have tracked down?
That's a good question. I know they're very scarce, and I've noticed over the period of time they'll come up in sales, particularly noble sales. Sometimes a couple of collectors will get carried away, and they'll, you know, a silver one could go for $800 to $900. I've seen them go for a lot less than that too over a period of time. So it depends on how excited bidders get on the day, I think. But they are a pretty scarce metal. Oh, gee, I'd have to have a wild guess to say. You'd think with the amount that we put out, say 450 bronze, it'd have to be a couple of hundred, wouldn't you? Just the bronze ones. But they don't come up very often. It took me 40 years to get 3 of them together. I know that.
Would just suggest that the population of those would be rather less than that. That sort of availability to collect.
Yeah, well,
we count with a couple of hands and your toes.
Yeah. There's not too many people that've got one that I know of.
Thank you. The whole issue, the whole thematic subject matter of the Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee is a huge interest to numismatists. The whole mass of pieces is there, and philatelists as well, as you know. The first charity stamp in the world was the New South Wales Queen Victoria Diamond Jubilee issue, the penny shilling charity stamp of New South Wales, and it was the forerunner for all the Red Cross charity stamps, the Belgian Pro-Juventude stamps, the Stamptarian stamps. So that Diamond Jubilee really was of enormous significance, and still today for us as collectors. Any other points or questions?
The other point I noticed, I didn't get excited about the portrait of Queen Victoria on that.
No, but the workmanship was still pretty good on it.
If Stokes had a hand, they'd probably use one of their off-the-rack dies, which had portraits of Queen Victoria with a whole proliferary of medals that they produced in 1897.
Yeah, the point I was making that medal is quite a good medal, irrespective whether you like the portrait or not. The workmanship in the medal was beautiful, whereas the suspender bar is absolutely quite crude.
Thank you, Bernie.
The comment that George made about the ribbon is very pertinent, because without the ribbon, often the top bar is lost to the unit, shall we say. So a piece with a top bar almost always has a sound ribbon, an original ribbon. Not always, but that's a good indicator. But the ribbons are particularly frail, and as George pointed out, with the passage of time, they've deteriorated badly. So the ribbon is probably the scarcest point of the whole thing. As regards the manufacture of the metal, I'm almost certain that it was the die sinking was done by Robert Kapner. Kapner, after all, produced the Lily medal for the Brisbane Grammar School some 20 years beforehand, and he did the die work on that with the medal being struck at the Sydney Mint. So I think he would almost certainly, because of the distinctive design of the medal, have done not only the design but the die sinking for that particular piece to be struck later by Stokes.
That die is a very elegant die, isn't it? Lily medal, would you say?
It is, and quite distinctively done in the hand of Kapner. And I think Kapner would have only been commissioned in this instance to manufacture the medal, not the bars and all the other pieces, as George pointed out. So his engagement would have been strictly on that basis. He produces a beautiful medal, hands it over to the police force, and the result is there as you see it. Perhaps it's provided the ribbon as a special order.
Thank you. You mentioned about Sergeant Crooks, the police officer. This is an example, as many colleagues know, of something called nominal determinism. You know, Mr. Miller, the pastry cook, Mr. Coffin, the undertaker. There is the phenomenon of the reverse nominal determinism. Sergeant Crooks, the policeman, Dr. Slaughter, the medical superintendent, Children's Hospital, and you will know many other examples as well. That was a very good one to put forward. Thank you. Well, colleagues, we're well ahead of time. Just
one point I want to make there. The one thing that did come out of this research was that all those years I've been collecting, nobody really knew who got a silver and who got a bronze. So I think it's quite clear now what happened there. And two references, there was two medals in the other type suspenders that I've seen, came out I think the last Sphinx sale. There was a couple that got the shock of my life when I opened it up and had a look. I was able to include those in so there's a reference to Noble's Numismatics. And the other reference is to Bernie Begley, because without Bernie Begley, in the early days, he went into the records there and brought out a lot of good records on my behalf, and which I've always been deeply appreciative of. And without that, I wouldn't have had as good a paper today, I wouldn't think. So thanks to Bernie for that.
Thank you. There's sometimes a trivial pursuit question. What are the most important emblems on flags of the world? And the answer is both stars and crosses. And we see them here. We'll be hearing from David after morning tea, David Mee today, about wonderful stories about a particular symbolism of a cross as well. But we can see here both stars and crosses, which the medallic sculptor has used. They get gold and silver, but you get a gold. They get silver and bronze. You get a gold one.
It's just a solid one.
Now, with Jerry's approval, colleagues, we're ahead of time. What I suggest is we break now for morning tea, but to help save time, because the time allocated for papers has to be very short. As you know, we've been fortunate in having this luxury of this extra time this morning. But there's only really 23 minutes or so for speaking time for the rest day and a half. So I think we might break now, but we might come back early, Jerry, if that's okay with you. So instead of coming back after morning tea at 11, could we come back at, say, sharply at 11:15 to start the next session? Thank you.
Morning tea's down here anyway.
Yes, I do.
So we're here anyway.
I'm next up.